What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Shea Bridge show. Mets Talk with Hayden here, talking Mets and Rob here. We are back for another weekly spot on this podcast, guys. And once again, the New York Mets found a way to lose against bad teams on the road. 2-4 road trip against the Cubbies and the Rockies. And whatever you want to say about this team, good or bad, they're a mediocre team. It's just very simple. It's very easy to quantify because me and Hayden were just talking about it prior to the live starting. There's a lot of things you could talk about when it comes to the New York Mets. But before we get started with that, don't forget to please hit on that like button on both channels, guys. And if you're not a subscriber of one of the channels, subscribe to the other everybody, because we're doing a lot of collabs that we're going to be it's going to be a big collaboration between a couple of podcasts, a couple of channels, and it's going to be huge and it's going to be a lot of fun. And some of you guys might be subscribed to them, following them, or however you looking into everything Mets. There's going to be a lot of us together next week, and we're setting it up as we speak, so it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be probably insane. And if the Mets are doing bad, probably a lot of negativity, but it will also be a lot of passionate Met fans that are going to be collabing together very, very shortly. So make sure you tune into that. And we will keep everybody posted on our community pages, Hayden. So once we get everything ready to go, we're going to post it, and we're going to tell you who's going to be on the collaboration on the channels and when you're going to be able to tune in and check it out. So Hayden, the Mets are 27-27. They're a 500 team. Somehow, some way, they're a game and a half back of a wild card spot. They're only 5 games away from the Braves, which is amazing to me. How this team is 500 with the awful pitching they have shown this year is absolutely amazing to me. How they're not 10 games under 500, because the Mets stats when it comes to pitching alone, or just any type of stat you can think of, offensively, at least not recently, but mostly for the year, they're 25th, 26th ranked in the league. If you look at every other team that is 24th, 25th, 26th ranked in pitching, or even offense for that matter, they're 8, 9, 10 games under 500, or they're hovering around 4 or 5 games under 500, and they're not very good. And somehow the Mets are finding a way to continue to hover around that 500 mark after they won a couple of games under, and now they're back to 500. And I don't know what this team is. There's not a lot of confidence in this team going into the homestand against the Phillies and the Blue Jays. But we said that right before the homestand against the Rays and the Guardians. So I don't know what to take from this team, but I'm going to make you start it off. We're going to hear from Hayden and find out if he has any ideas or anything that possible that you can understand from this team, because it really does not make sense at the moment. But Hayden, take it away, buddy, and how you doing?
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden here. Good to be here. Good to be back. Obviously, last stream I was in a hotel in South Carolina, so definitely much better to be in my awesome setup. No internet issues. I do apologize about that. So we're back to normal. But I don't know. Maybe I should go back to that, because the last time the Mets were winning. So I don't know. But yeah. There's a lot to summarize with this week. As I say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we're leaning towards more bad and ugly. And last week was great. The Rays with the Guardians, 5-1, 5-game win streak, and now we're kind of back to this team looking like a toilet bowl of crap. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They played like crap this week. And, if anyone's, the offense is playing. I don't care.
They're losing.
Because you could score 10 runs and you could still lose the game.
Correct.
It's not, they get points. No, it doesn't work like that. You could score 10 runs and get 20 hits and still lose. And that's more of a disappointment. I'd rather honestly get no hit than deal with that, because that just really says a lot. The Cubs series started off good. I think you're right. You took game one. Or no, you lost and then you took the middle game. And, you could definitely say your offense looked pretty decent, I would argue. Obviously, you saw a lot of power, launch angle, and hard contact. And I like that. Obviously, first 2 games of the series were quiet. 2 runs. Stranded a lot of guys in scoring position. The 2-out hitting was there. It's just the pitching was horrible. And then you go to game 3, and the Mets went on a tear. Offensively, they were hitting. Everyone was hitting. Everyone was hitting home runs. Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo was going like 4 for 4. McNeil, everyone was hitting. Even your worst hitters in the lineup, everyone was hitting. And then you go into Colorado, you go on a 2-game win streak, you take game 1, and then you score 10 runs in game 2 and 3, and you think, oh my, they must have won. No, they lost because their pitching sucks ass. I tell you, I don't think I've ever would have saw that in my bingo card, seeing the Mets lose back-to-back games by scoring 10 runs. So, the beginning of the season, I really do believe the beginning in May, this team's issue was offense. They couldn't hit with runners in scoring position, and they couldn't hit with 2 outs, and they couldn't hit for power. Now they're doing that. And you're seeing that from Alonso going on a historic home run tear. We'll talk about that later in the stream, of course. Francisco Alvarez is on a power surge. Brett Beatty's helping a little bit. Vientos is hitting the ball hard. Nimmo's been an OBP machine. McNeil's been an OBP machine. Marte's actually looking decent. Escobar's looking decent. But now they switched. They went into a full, 180, and now the pitching's horrible. Verlander looks fried. Senga can't even locate a pitch. McGill, at this rate, send him down and, call me up. This pitching is horrible. And I think that is right now the biggest concern, because obviously if you're scoring 10 runs, yeah, your offense is good. It's just your pitching freaking sucks. And I think there's many roots of the problem to that. I think Jeremy Hefner is to blame. I think Billy Epler is to blame. Billy Epler invested in this old rotation, guys that are 40 years old, 37 years old, 36 years old. That's an issue. And Quintana's like 34, 35. Yeah. The Mets went from being an average rotation in age to, I think, the oldest? I think they are the oldest in baseball right now. Yeah. The Cardinals have gotten a lot younger now. So that really says a lot. And I blame Epler and I blame Hefner for that. And you could say, with the injuries, listen, Epler couldn't predict these injuries. Really? Epler wouldn't predict that your 40-year-old starter gets beat up and has injuries? Wow, who would have thought? So, yeah, we have a big issue with that. And, I'm done with Peterson. I'm done with McGill. And I'm done with half this rotation, frankly. Yeah. Senga can't pitch for his life on the road. And then when he goes to pitch at Citifield, he's like Tom Seaver. Well, if that's the case, then you shouldn't be playing Major League Baseball if you get nervous in an opposing team's ballpark. Because, last I checked, you can't just play home games. It doesn't work like that. So I don't know if that's a mental thing, but, Scherzer's looking good. I'll give Scherzer props. Last 3 games, 3-0, he's given up 2 runs. Tip of the cap to Scherzer. He figured his stuff out, and we said it. Scherzer is a very, very, very competitive guy. And if it meant that he had to chop off his hand to pitch well, he would do it. He's a very competitive guy, and he wants what's best. So I respect Scherzer for that. Verlander, I'm getting a little impatient with. And you can come at me all you want, but he had, 2 good starts this season? The one in Cincinnati and the Cleveland one? Otherwise, he got destroyed in, the 3-4 other starts? And when I say destroyed, 5-6 runs, of course, Epler signed him this year than last year when he won Cy Young, because, that's what the Mets love to do. So, I'm very upset right now. And this bullpen was great. And everyone's like, well, what happened? Well, they're overtaxed. I mean, go back to the stream 2 weeks ago when Rob and I talked about it. Overtaxed was the word I used, because we see Buck Showalter destroying Adam Ottavino, destroying David Robertson, destroying Steven Nagosic, making them pitch like 3 innings in 2 days. And look what happened. They're overtaxed. They're fatigued. They're tired. And then today we see them DFA or release
Yacobonis.
But no, Nagosic's fine. Because Nagosic shows so much potential. Because he has a mustache that looks like Keith Hernandez. Yeah. So I had to think about that for a minute because I was very confused. I see that says they release Yacobonis, but Nagosic is fine. Leone is fine. Bringham's fine. I don't care about Bringham's ERA. He's horrible in like 2-game situations. Drew Smith, horrible.
Well, we've talked about that for years.
I mean, hey, Siri, tell me Drew Smith's numbers in high leverage situations or 1-run games. And I just set off my Siri. Whoops. They're horrible. I mean, they're absolutely horrible. And this bullpen is just not good. And there's a reason that this team has blown a lot of games and feels like 2019 all over again. And, there are a lot of guys who are playing well right now, former relievers, whether that's Osmando Ramirez, Miguel Castro. And everyone's like, oh, but Hayden, they weren't good with the Mets. Well, the other teams figured them out. So maybe that means Jeremy Hefner is not doing his job and he should be fired. Or maybe the Mets pitching staff is, maybe the Mets pitching department is not as great as people think it is. If they can't, the D-backs are fixing Miguel Castro. That says something. Look at Marcus Stroman. Hate to say it, Chris Bassett started off the season bad. Look at his last 3 starts, pretty good. We'll see Taijuan Walker this series. We'll see Walker. So, listen, say what you want about Stroman, say what you want about Bassett, but they're playing pretty well now. But right now, my biggest concern with this team is this pitching staff. They show no potential, and you can't win ball games when your starters go 4 1/3 and give up 6 runs, 7 walks. I mean, this team doesn't strike guys out. And they love walking guys. I mean, we've had 1 start where a guy had double-digit strikeouts in Senga. He had 12 against the Rays. Well, last year that was like a completely. I mean, now it's unorthodox. Now, last year that was so common.
Yeah.
And it's fine if you don't have high strikeout guys, ground ball guys, but they're walking guys and giving up hard contacts, and that's an issue. So I think Billy Epler took one of the best rotations in baseball and easily created one of the worst in less than 12 months. And quote me on that, record it, 357.
Yeah. Because
that is an absolute horrible concern. And then what are the Mets waiting for? You're not waiting for DeGrom. What are you waiting for? Quintana in July? What is he going to spark? He could. You never know. But, And it's not like there's anyone in AAA that's like, oh, call him up. Budo. If McGill gets so horribly bad, give a chance to Budo. We saw Josh Walker.
You're going to give this another chance.
Yeah, Josh Walker, decent lefty arm. Is he a starter? But he could be a decent bullpen arm if the Mets bullpen is so taxed.
What I don't understand, there's a couple of guys in Syracuse that are in the pen right now. I was looking at the numbers. They're not terrible numbers. I'm like, why don't you just give these guys a chance? Instead of Tommy Hunter and Leone and Nagosic, why don't you change those 3 guys for another 3 guys on the roster in Syracuse? Just see what happens. You might hit lightning in a bottle. And can somebody hit 96 from this bullpen?
Yeah, this team's pitching staff has no velocity. Listen, you don't need velocity, but the hardest I've seen someone throw out of the bullpen is like 95 miles per hour.
Yeah.
I get it. If you don't want to throw hard, that's fine. Yeah. But to an extent, you need some velo. Unless you're going to have like a nasty curveball or cutter that like dips or sinks or it's crazy movement. But these guys are throwing fastballs that are like 95 miles per hour. I'm like, you kidding me?
It's crazy to me. And it makes no sense. That was a great intro by you. That was a great rant by you and everything like that. Everything I agree with. Look, we can, and I said this from the first 2 weeks of the season when people were bitching and moaning about the power of the Mets. The Mets don't have no power. That's why they're losing games. No, it was always the pitching. The Mets have hit a home run in 12 straight games.
Yeah.
Go back to see how many games they lost in those games. Again, it comes down to the Mets were never having problems scoring runs. Yeah, maybe the first week and a half. But even when they didn't have Beatty, when they didn't have Vientos, they were still scoring 4.5 runs per game.
And now they're scoring more, but they're losing.
Yeah, they're scoring over 6 runs per game. So what else do you want? And then people who are bitching and moaning, oh, they needed this guy up, they needed that guy up. It was not about the lineup. It never was, and it never will be, at least to this point.
I think in the beginning it was. I mean, listen, 4-2 against the Cubs, 4-2 against the Cubs. And I think this lineup should be scoring a little bit more than 2 runs.
I agree.
In the beginning, this team made guys like Austin Gomber and no-name guys look like Cy Young, look like Tom Seaver. And I think in the beginning of the season, like I said, I think in the beginning of the season, it was the offense. And now it's the pitching. And why is that? Because your bullpen's overtaxed and your starting rotation is just a nightmare. Whatever other term you want to use. So this team is bouncing around from issues. This team can't have, 1,000 different issues going on. The lineup isn't a concern unless, I would say really the only concerns in the lineup, I would say, are Vogelbach, Pham. I don't care about Pham. People need to stop. It was Coors Field. I don't care about Tommy Pham. I would say the only problems with this lineup, and I'm going to get killed for the third one, is Tommy Pham, Daniel Vogelbach, dare I say Francisco Lindor.
Speak your mind.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, taking the dive.
Look, this is no holds bar channel, right? This is our show. Talk about Lindor. Look, you get killed for it, you get killed for it. That's it. That's the way I see it.
And I guess taking a dive into this lineup, I would say the only guys that are actually playing very well are Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo has had a phenomenal season. I love what this dude is doing. He has proved that he is worth that 8 years, $162 million. He's going to be an all-star this year. Gold Glove contention, Silver Slugger contention. I love Nimmo. Nimmo's been great. Jeff McNeil's been great. Obviously looking at Jeff McNeil, the average is there. I don't care if he's a batting champion. McNeil looks great. Alonso, tip of the fucking cap to Pete Alonso. I mean, this dude is probably 20 home runs already. Are you kidding me? I mean, we're a third through the season. He has the most in the league. RBIs are there. The OPS is there. Get the average up 5-10 points and we're chilling. Otherwise, Alonso's been phenomenal. I think he'll hit 60. I really do. I think he'll hit 60.
Judge and him are going to be running for it. That's for sure.
So, and then you have Francisco Alvarez. Francisco Alvarez has been playing phenomenal. Slow start. Now defensively, one of the best defensive catchers in the game. Framing is there. The defensive metrics love him. Offensively, chilled out with his approach, and he's hitting for power, hard hits. So I love what Alvarez is doing. Baby's been doing well. Vientos is hitting the ball hard. Those two guys are going to continue to grow. Escobar's been looking a little bit better from the right-hand side. Marte's been looking a little bit more lively. Canna's still a dead duck. But I would say the only guys that I'm very happy with right now are Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo. Yeah, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, and Francisco Alvarez. Those are the only guys I am very happy with right now. I'm disappointed in Canna. And I don't know what the issue is with Canna. I don't know if it's the pitch clock. And if that's the case, well, then he should have, not been running around going to all these big league foodie restaurants in Port and Miami when the season started. He should have, been focusing. So I'm upset with Canna. I'm a little upset with Marte with his approach, but he's been getting better, so I'll cut him loose. Vogelbach, most useless player, and I'm done repeating myself. If you want to hear my opinion on Vogelbach, go to the last 5 streams. Lindor, now he's the man of the hour, Francisco Lindor. And listen, if you guys agree, disagree, let's have a peaceful debate in the comment section. We're human beings. We don't need to kill each other. Looking at Lindor right now, the homers are there and the RBIs are there. The average is not there. The OBP is not there, and the OPS is not there. He's batting near the Mendoza line. His OBP is 299. 299. OBP, on-base percentage. OPS, nearing 700. 2021 at this time, he had a better slash line than what he has now.
Yeah.
And the home runs are great. The RBIs are great. But if I want that, I would have just signed Kyle Schwarber. The defense, great, cool. But, I need more than home runs, strikeouts, and ground balls to the second baseman. I get it. The Cleveland series, cool. The home runs, cool. But he needs to relax with the strike. He has more strikeouts than Javier Baez.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I know.
I have a friend who's a Tigers fan, and we were comparing Lindor to Baez, and he's like, "Who's more strikeouts?" I'm like, "Lindor." He's like, "No." I'm like, "Yes."
I looked at that stat earlier. It was so funny because I was driving back from the shore, and I was just looking at it, I was like, "Holy shit!" I'm like, "It's not even close." Like that's
like 25 more strikeouts.
Yeah.
And that's Lindor. You constantly see him. I don't know why he bats from the left-hand side. He looks so lost from the left-hand side. I mean, you see him. He swings and then he strikes out a ball in the dirt, and his knees is in the dirt. And then you see him bat from the right-hand side, and it looks like he has a launch angle swing. From the left-hand side, he just hits ground balls and strikeouts. I don't know really what the issue is with. I mean, the issue is the strikeouts, and he's not putting enough balls in play.
Yeah.
Simple as that. We're seeing strikeouts and little bullshit hits to the second baseman and first baseman. No, I need hard contact. It's not like, oh, he's getting unlucky. And I get it. He had the Nationals game where he had the 3 runs that won the game. The Guardians walk off. Cool. But you need more than that. Yeah. I mean, if I'm looking at the resume, comparing that to Pete, McNeil, Nimmo, there's a lot more on their side. So Lindor, I love the defense. I love the home runs. I love the RBIs. But he can't be batting 200, with an on-base percentage of 290 and an OPS of 700. Because otherwise, you're not going to do very well, this team. And especially considering that he's batting third or batting in front of guys like Alonso. And, listen, Nimmo and Alvarez, if Alvarez continues batting in the 2 spot, and McNeil, whoever, if they get on base, that's great. But, you need Lindor to get hot. Yeah. But he's playing worse than what he was at this time.
I'm sorry about that, man. But Lindor it gets hot. At some point, he'll have like a 3-week stretch where he'll hit 5 or 6 home runs. He'll knock in about 12 to 15 RBIs. He'll do that. And look, the people who don't want to bring up average are the same people that won't have an argument when it comes to Lindor with the home runs and RBIs. He's on pace for 30 home runs and 112 RBIs. That's what he's on pace for. But if you're batting 210, you're basically either striking out, not putting the ball in play, or you're hitting the ball over the wall. That's basically what you're doing. And that is not, again, I don't care about the money. I don't care what anybody says, right? If that's the case, Nimmo should get $300 million, right? The way he's playing, right?
Yeah. Can I get it?
Even Judge is not going to be worth that money. Everybody is not going to be worth that money. Pete Alonso in 7 years won't be worth that money. It's just how it goes. But the problem that I have most about Lindor, and this is the only thing I have a problem with, is there's the thing you brought up. On-base percentage is what, 299, right? His OPS is hovering around 700. That's a problem, right? Can you get it up to 780, closer to 800? Make me feel a little better about myself? No, he ain't doing that right now. I need that on base to be around 340, 350. I need your average. Give me 250, 260. Because if you hit 30 home runs and knocking over 100 RBIs, if you're batting 250, I'm not going to say a word, because that is something. Because if you're going to be,
I don't even think
as a power hitter, because anything over 25 home runs, I consider a power hitter. If you're going to hit over 25 home runs, batting 260 is probably a reach for most players, unlike Aaron Judge or unlike Pete Alonso, who actually showed that he can bat over 260 last year. That is something that I want Lindor to do. I need him to bat 250, 260. Because if not, give me 21 home runs and bat 280 then. That is the issue I'm having. You talked about Lindor left-handed. Why he bats left-handed? I know he hit his last 2 home runs left-handed. Wonderful. And I know Grant put that in the chat. But let's be honest. The guy should only be batting right-handed. He has such a beautiful swing right-handed. He's more balanced right-handed. He has that launch angle swing you're talking about, but he also levels out his swing when he has to. He shortens his swing on 2 strikes, which he doesn't do left-handed. And that is the biggest problem. Look at the splits, strikeout-wise. I know he bats more left-handed than right-handed. Every other at-bat, Francisco Lindor basically strikes out. I think it's like 1 out of every 3 at-bats, left-handed. That's a problem. That means he's not adjusting to whatever he needs to adjust. He's constantly swinging for the fences left-handed. But again, just watch a replay of any right-hander at bat with Lindor. Even when he strikes out, and he strikes out a lot, look at him when he strikes out right-handed. He'll be batting right-handed today. If he strikes out, I guarantee you it will be a very good at-bat. You'll see his feet balance. He wouldn't be, like you said, his knee on the ground.
Yeah, his knees in the dirt, and he looks so off. And then, one thing I just, for one second, I need to say this, is that everyone's like, oh, but power, it's lower average. Really? What's Francisco Alvarez batting? And, I mean, tell me how his power surge has been lately. Okay, Pete Alonso's batting like 240. Well, he was struggling for like a decent 2 weeks. But lately, he's raised his average, 20%, 20 points. And with that, Alonso's going to be capable of, considering how much doubles and base hits and walks he's getting as of lately, he'll be raising it. So everyone that's hitting for power is raising their average, whether that's Alvarez, whether that's Alonso. Lindor's the only guy that's not. And
I agree.
I'm not trying to be like, oh, this is like a, shit on Lindor stream or anti-Lindor stream, but I mean, be better, play better. And I'm getting very frustrated. Call me a Lindor, whatever the heck you want to call me, go for it. Yeah. But right now, I can't have, 9 home runs and 30-something RBIs, but then an average that's Mendoza line, an OBP that's 290, which is horrible, and then an OPS of 700. Because right now, those numbers are much worse than what Lindor had this time in 2021. Tell me how that season. Because if that's the case, get Kyle Schwarber on the phone and let him do that.
I agree with you about Lindor. And you know what? Look, if Alonso hits 55 home runs and knocks in 130 RBIs, but he bats 240, and that's how he ends his career. It's not his career, his season. I'm not going to be happy with that. Yeah, it's the same thing, and this is not a Lindor, show to hate on him. It's just pointing out what are the issues. And let's be honest, we can bitch and moan and more about less about the lineup. Absolutely, we should be, we'll be focusing more on the pitching because that's been the bigger problem. But we need guys, especially if you're batting second, third, or fourth. You got to have a 250 average or higher. Or I don't care what the home runs are, and I don't care what the RBIs are. The reason why Aaron Judge is a great hitter is because he's a 300 hitter with the power and RBIs, right? Alonso surprised the heck out of me last year with the average because I wasn't completely sold on Pete Alonso as an overall hitter because it's the power and the RBIs that I know he's going to have. That's not the issue. But if he can bat 260, I would even say 255 and higher. Then I can say, all right, he can be one of the better overall hitters in baseball. But you have to bat above that. And that's the same thing we're talking about with Lindor. If he hits 30 home runs, 112 RBIs, which he's on pace for, but bats 230, how can I say that's okay? Now, again, the Mets can find a way to make the playoffs, and Lindor just goes ape shit and is one of the best players in the postseason, do like a Daniel Murphy or something like that. And then we'll all love him, right? But I need that average to be better. And I'm always the one talking about average. People, and I know you're very analytical, but you talk about the average. That's why I can't get on you a lot with analytics, because you brought up average in your OPS, in the on-base percentage and all the other analytical stats.
And they're still not even that great.
Yeah.
They're worse. If anything, I'd rather use Lindor's average to defend him than his OBP, because the OBP is just horrible. And that's why I get mad when people is like, oh, average doesn't matter in baseball. No, you know what average tells you? Average tells you if you're 210, 220, or a 290 hitter, that means you put the bat on the ball more. That means there's opportunities for the ball to find a hole. If you don't hit the ball, your average ain't going anywhere.
And that's the alarming part with Francisco Lindor. Either when he makes contact, something happens in the positive direction. The problem is he's not making a lot of solid contact this year, as you pointed out with the ground balls to second base. Like left-handed, if there was a bet on FanDuel that says he's going to hit it to second base, I would bet my life savings.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I would absolutely.
And that is the thing. And look, I don't want to kill the lineup right now because the lineup is scoring a little over 6 runs per ball game, and you should win many ball games with that. And just like when the Mets were scoring 4.5 runs per game, which was the majority of the year prior to the last 3 weeks, the Mets were scoring 4.5 runs per ball game. But when your pitching staff is giving up 7.5 runs per game, you're not going to win a lot of ball games. They lowered that a tad to a little under 7, and then it went right back up after the Colorado series. Again, Colorado is a weird place. I agree with you with Verlander. I think Verlander, I don't know if Verlander is a gamer. I don't know if it was just the Astro being a part of the Astros organization that figured him out or whatever, that, did certain things with him that made him great. I don't know. I don't know how much of Verlander is a gamer. You talked about Scherzer, and we talked about this prior to the stream. Scherzer's a bulldog. People were saying that Scherzer's washed up. I never thought that, because Scherzer is the biggest competitor you'll ever see on the mound. The guy cares. And you see how much he cared when he got thrown out of the game about the sweat and rosin nonsense in LA. He gave a shit. And that's what I see. When I hear the post-game interviews with Scherzer when he pitched bad, yeah, I sucked. I wish I could have done better. I didn't give my team no accountable. He's exactly. Verlander, yeah, I didn't have my curveball going really. I thought I threw a good pitch. What? You didn't do shit. That's the problem that I have with Verlander. I don't want to hear excuses. And then people were saying that Scherzer was bringing up excuses. No, he actually was using sweat and rosin. He just used a lot of fucking rosin, right? Which I don't want to get into the sweat and rosin issue, because the rule, if anybody reads the rule, and I want to get back to that really quick, because all of a sudden Scherzer is pitching extremely well, and he is not throwing 96, 97 miles an hour like he was last year. His fastball was topping out at 96 last year, occasionally 97. He's topping out at like 94, occasionally 95. Max Scherzer, with the whole rule, with the whole rosin, if you look at the rule, it is so bland where they're leaving so much judgment up to the umpires about. You play baseball, Hayden. I played baseball. If you ever played baseball, I never pitched. But there was times when, it's a warm day. You sweating a lot. The hand's a little moist. You can't get the grip on the ball. And I was a third baseman. I used to pick up the rosin every now and then, pat it a little bit, get my hand a little dry. It used to get sticky as well. Again, I understand excess rosin, but it's a legal substance. How much is too much? Is it 5 pats on the hand? Is it 20?
And that's the issue.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they don't rectify it, then they can't forcibly force the rule. And that goes with Herman, that goes with Scherzer, that goes with everybody else who got thrown out this year. So back to the pitching, right? Senga is Tom Seaver at home. We told you brought up that. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes 6 innings today and gives up 1 run. Now, will the Mets score? Who knows? We should destroy Suarez today. He has a 12 ERA, 11 ERA? But we'll make him look like Cy Young today. Guaranteed. The Mets will either lose 2-1 or win 2-1. I'm putting that in the books. I already put $50 on FanDuel for a 1-run game. I put 2-1 either way. So either way, I'm going to win if that score wins. The pitching needs to step it up. I need Senga pitching every 5th day. I don't care if his arm falls off. Too fucking bad. Every 5th day. If he can't figure it out it's almost June. It's 2 months now. And I get the first month and a half maybe, but you can't have 6 days off, 7 days, 8 days off. Oh, well, we're going to give him 10 days off. No, you can't do that, because that affects every other pitcher in the rotation. I don't think Verlander wants an extra day off, or Scherzer wants an extra day off. These guys are a creature of habit. Don't keep on favoring Senga because, he hasn't pitched in America before. Okay, fine. But it's 2 months into the season. If you can't pitch every 50, you're not a major leaguer. And that is another reason why Epler should be fired, right?
Yeah.
Again, Epler should have been fired after the season last year, after the bullshit trade deadline he had with Vogelback and Ruff, and trading like one of the better relievers the Mets had prior to that trade in Holderman. And they traded him away. He's been
how's he doing in Pittsburgh? Pretty well.
Yeah. JD Davis, again, people wanted JD Davis. Remember when they got Ruff? Nobody cared. I wasn't a fan of that move at all. I wasn't a fan of Vogelback. Remember, Hayden, you were on my channel a lot last year. How many times was there people talking about the on-base percentage of Daniel Vogelback?
Drove me nuts.
Do I need to hear that? But about a guy who blocks the base paths when he gets on. If he doesn't hit home runs, so what's the point of him? That's what I don't understand.
Station guy. And we said it with Vogelbach. He's not a threat on the base paths. He's a station-to-station guy. And we've already seen him make boneheaded decisions on the base. And frankly, I mean, kind of flush the team's chances of winning down the Twin. He is a liability on the field, Daniel Vogelbach. And we've noticed he hasn't played in the lineup in the last 4 games? Good. Because you notice the last 4 games, you've been scoring runs. You've been passing the baton. And I think right now, if you want to keep this offense hot, you get Vogelbach nowhere near the lineup. Tommy Pham, I don't want him in the lineup. I don't give a crap about his one Colorado series. I don't care. I want to see Beatty. You should not be platooning Beatty. Beatty should be in that lineup every single day, along with Alvarez and Vientos.
Well, Beatty's not in today, but
he's not because Buck Showalter's an idiot. Yeah, but I think right now, looking at this pitching staff, that, like Rob said, that is the main concern. And I agree. Scherzer is a guy who, like I said, if he has to chop off his arm to pitch well, he'll do it. He's a crazy psychopath, cool guy. I mean, it's in a good way. He's very competitive. Like you said, JV, I don't know, he's fried. I mean, of course, Epler got him this year, not last year when he won Cy Young. But, another reason to shit on Epler. But, Verlander hasn't, he's 2 good starts and then 4 bad starts.
Yeah.
Like I said, Senga's, Cy Young at home, and then on the road, he's horrible. So, if you can't pitch on the road, then, why are you in the MLB? You can't always play in your ballpark. I don't know if that's a mental thing. I don't know what it is. So hopefully he can figure that out soon. And I agree. They shouldn't be basing the rotation off of Senga because, it's not the Kodai Senga show. As much as I love him, it's not the Senga show. It's the Verlander, Scherzer, Senga, Carrasco, McGill show.
Yeah.
And, I think if this team has any chance of success, Scherzer needs to continue to dominate. Carrasco needs to build off of that last start. Really?
I think
probably
he will.
not.
If his bone spurs and bone chips don't act up in his elbow, if you give me 5 innings, 2 runs every start from your 5th starter, I have to take that.
That's fair. So if Carrasco could build off of his last start, Scherzer can continue to grind. I don't know, send McGill to Mars and call up Budo or Josh Walker. Yeah, Josh Walker's a guy I wouldn't be against calling up. Someone said another arm, another minor league.
The kid that just got brought up to AAA. Did you bring him up earlier? They just brought him up. He had
Josh Walker and Luke Hazy. Luke Hazy, I don't know. We'll see. But honestly, if it comes to the bullpen and, guys like Noga Suck and whoever else is playing horrible, yeah, I'd rather Luke Hazy and Walker in the bullpen than Suck and Leone and, home run Drew Smith.
Why did we do that, though? Like I just don't get it. Like, Nogosek and Hunter shouldn't be on this team right now.
No, they should not.
Has options, bring them back down. Tommy Hunter, DFA. Give Lucchesi and give Walker a chance. They can't be worse. And if they are, at least you tried something. At least you can tell your fans, at the moment, there's no trades that are available. This is what we have, and we're trying. Look, if they were bringing up bullpen arms like every other week to try something new, I could say, all right, they're trying with what they can do at the moment. I wouldn't kill Epler for that. But the reason why he's in this spot, well, again, you can't predict the Edwin Diaz injury. When we got Robinson, we thought we were going to have the best 1-2 in baseball, 8th and 9th. So that obviously, the Diaz injury pushed everybody up, obviously.
But he never made a move. Diaz got hurt. What did he do? He said, all right, bullpen, everyone move up. He never went out.
It was a week and a half before the season.
There were plenty of arms out there. He could have explored more in AAA.
Good, though. That's what I'm saying. Like I was looking at the bullpen arms. They weren't very good arms. Like maybe he would have got lightning in a bottle with somebody, but it wasn't anybody that
could have done a trade. I mean, there were plenty of I mean, Epler, everyone says, "Oh, Steve Cohen makes all the moves on the most clear times."
I'm gonna tell you right now, people are talking about the trade deadline. I'm telling you guys this right now. The New York Mets had every opportunity when they were the top 3 teams in baseball last year to make big trades. And I can care less what these kids are doing now. The Mets had the opportunity last year to better a team that was one of the best teams in baseball last year. If they would have got another bat or another strong arm in the bullpen and make that bullpen elite, who knows what would have happened? Who knows? But the fact that Epler and the front office and everybody, and this is going along with Cohen as well, where Cohen wants to build up the farm system. When you're that close and you are one of the top contenders to win a World Series at the trade deadline, you do what you can to get better. All right, because you never know. And I spoke about this last year. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I got killed for this last year. When I said you don't worry about next year and you don't worry about the prospects that could do something next year because all the prospects are up and the Mets are 500. The Mets have a losing record with the kids up. So you got what you wanted. So do you only care about the kids or you care about winning or losing? I care about winning. All right. This team hasn't won since 86. I'm not saying to give up all 3 of your top prospects for, a top of the line starting pitcher or the top of the line bullpen arm or the biggest bat you could possibly find last year. The problem was everybody that was challenging the Mets for a possible World Series appearance, the Padres, the Phillies, the Braves,
they made moves in the Mets.
They all made moves to better their team. Better. Phillies got some bullpen arms, right? The Dodgers got a little bit more with the bat. The Padres got, obviously, they got a couple of bats, right? They made moves, and they got better. And the Mets basically stood pat. They traded J.D. Davis. They basically flipped J.D. Davis and Dominic Smith for Ruff and Vogelback, which was worse than what we already had. Again, I'm not saying you couldn't try, but there was better options out there. And you don't think that we could have got a Josh Bell or a Brandon Drury for a Holdeman? I think more people would have been okay with that than Vogelback because Bell is not great, but he's better than Vogelback. Drury, same thing. And I think Drury's hurt right now, but still, the point of the matter is, when your team is one of the top 3 or 4 teams in baseball, and all you need is probably that 1 or 2 pieces to fill out your roster to make it even better. You didn't do that because you were so concerned about 2023 and 2024. But too many Met fans were bitching and moaning about 2023 and 2024. Well, you got exactly what you hoped for, Mets fans. And this is all Met fans that got on me and got on a couple of other people. I even think Hayden wasn't so in tune. He's like, yeah, you want to keep your prospects. You want to build up your farm system. Well, what about McNeil? What about Alonso? What about Nimmo? There's your core. All right. That's 3 of the guys that are mainstays in your lineup. You could have used 1 or 2 of your top prospects to get even better last year because maybe that Marte injury wouldn't have hurt as much in September. Because the biggest issue that the New York Mets had was when they had a chance to go for it, they did not, right? Why did the Mets make that run in 2015? Because they went for it. They traded their pitching prospect for Cespedes. Even though Alderson didn't want Cespedes, that was his last choice, and Alderson's another issue. But he made the move, and it made us get to a World Series. It was the biggest piece that we needed, and they got it. The Mets didn't get the biggest need at all, and it completely destroyed this team. And I'm sorry, I don't care how good your team is. When you see your front office sit on their hands at the deadline, when you're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in baseball, your momentum is like, oh, shit.
Yeah, that's an issue.
No help. We were 1 injury away last year from everything falling apart. And guess what? Marte, who is one of the best players in that lineup, the spark plugs of that lineup, that one injury happened, and it was a trickle-down effect in September, and it led right into the playoffs. That's why Epler is a big problem, and he still is. For everybody who's like, oh, the Mets need Ohtani, do you really think they're going to blow up their farm system now when they're a 500 team? Say if there are 2 or 3 games over 500 by the deadline, a couple of games out of first place. Do you really think Epler is going to make that move for Ohtani or for another big player? He's not, because he could have done that last year when the Mets were 6 or 7 games up, or 4 or 5 games up at the deadline last year, and he didn't do it. So don't expect it, Met fans. If you were expecting that, the only thing that Epler might do is that he might be hearing some whispers that he might be getting fired, and maybe he will get desperate. And that is the worst possible GM to have, a desperate GM.
Yep.
And that is the biggest problem that we're having right now. And I think that is the biggest problem.
And I think, looking at the track record, I think the 3 guys that are on the hot seat are Billy Epler, Buck Showalter, and Jeremy Hefner.
Yeah, I agree.
And honestly, frankly, I could see why the Angels suffered with Billy Epler. Frankly, I could kind of see why, Buck bounced around and got canned out of Baltimore. Yeah, say we want about the 118 losses. Okay, but still, when they were in the playoffs, the bullpen management, we don't need to talk about that. But, I could see reasons why. Everyone, Jeremy Hefner. What reason is there to justify Jeremy Hefner being employed with the Mets right now? What reasons? I mean, Scherzer pitched great his last 3 appearances. Verlander's been crap. McGill's been crap. Senga's been so-so. I mean, I think anyone could really work with him and get him accustomed to, the American baseballs and pitching for the Mets. So, that's one thing. But, our pitching staff has been a disaster. And like I said, the New York Mets and Billy Epler had one of the best rotations and easily created one of the worst.
Yeah.
And, who knows, maybe Billy Epler should go out at the trade deadline and sign Rich Hill and Zach Greinke. Why not just, sign a ton of dads and, why not, right? Let's make the youngest guy Carrasco at 36. It's an absolute disgrace. And, who knows, keep drafting shortstops, keep drafting catchers, because, you need 20 more of those. Why don't you start drafting pitching? Pitching. That is
college pitchers, please.
2 things that the New York Mets do not draft is pitching and outfield. I want them for the next 4 drafts. Pitching, outfield.
All they should get.
That's all they could get. I don't want them getting any infielders, no second basemen, no third basemen, no shortstops, no first basemen.
Catchers?
No catchers. No, catcher, you're done. You're not drafting anymore. Pitcher, outfielder. That is all you need. Because right now, tell me 3 Mets outfield prospects besides Jalen Palmer, who's in high A? So tell me who.
Right.
I'm interested. Because, Pete Armstrong would be a great candidate, but the Mets got rid of him, but that's a story for another day.
Well, you know what? Not a lot of people were mad about that. Everybody wanted buyers. A lot of people wanted buyers here. I didn't.
I was not against it, but then considering, Williams is no longer a Met and Baez is no longer a Met. So you pretty much traded, him for 2 months and then for Williams. I mean, if you still had one of those 2 guys, whether it was Williams or Baez, okay.
Yeah.
But
correct, exactly.
Williams with the Nationals, Baez is with the Tigers, and I think right now, looking at it, regardless, Epler wasn't involved in that, but he probably could have been because he's an idiot. But I think Billy Epler is a moron, and I apologize for everyone in the beginning saying that I thought he was a decent GM. Last year, before the deadline, he assembled a good team: Marte, Canna, Scherzer, and went into this offseason and. So Tommy Pham is going to be our offensive piece after losing Carlos Correa. And, listen, maybe losing Correa was a blessing in disguise because, he's hurt now. And prior to him getting hurt, he was, playing horrible, abysmal in Minnesota. So, yeah, I think if you look at it right now, I think Epler is on the hot seat. And like you said, the last thing you want is a desperate manager or GM or any coaching staff that's desperate, because that is a disaster. And someone asked in the comment section, and I want to vaguely address it. Do you think Steve Cohen is going to start getting some comments towards him? Yeah, absolutely. because, like I said,
Right,
but looking at it, he's the owner. He's in charge of this team. And, when you set a deadline saying if you don't win a World Series in 3 to 5 years, it's disappointing. Well, you're in year 3, bud, and you're playing 500 ball. I'll give him 2021. Sure. Last year was great, and you should be playing like how you were last year. And obviously, yes, in today's day and age, it doesn't matter who your owner is. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You could be the cheapest. Look at the Rays. How much do they spend? I mean, look at the 3 teams that I think have the highest payroll, not named the Yankees. Padres, Mets, Phillies. 2 of those teams are under 500, and the Mets are 500. So keep spending money. Keep spending, and giving the fans this mentality of, spending works. Let's go and sign Tatis. Let's sign Bogarts. Let's sign Soto, under 500. Let's sign Harper. Let's sign Castellanos, under 500. Money doesn't, spending, buying doesn't work. And I think right now, Billy Epler is a fraud. He is an idiot. He is a moron. I think he should get hit by a bus. I shouldn't say that. But honestly, if the Mets lose both of these home series, fire him. Because what's the point? Would you rather lose with him or lose with the interim GM?
Yeah, I agree. I
do anything at the deadline. He's gonna, I have trust in this lineup, and Steve Cohen's gonna go to Twitter. Everyone, I'm sorry. The OPS numbers don't lie. What's the difference? What's the difference if you lose with Epler or if you lose with the interim GM? And the same thing goes with Buck. I know it got very heated on the stream a couple, on both of ours with Buck Showalter, actually. But that's a good Buck too. And like I said, I'm not trying to come on here and be all negative, but what is there to be happy about? You're playing 500 ball. You're 27 and 27. Last year at this time, you were what, like 37 and like 15?
We're about 15 games over 500.
Right now you can't even play 5 games over 500.
Yeah, and listen,
I said don't panic until Memorial Day, and I said that on May 2nd, and I look back at my stream past Memorial Day. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys and say, oh well, I'm gonna push it back to filibuster it to June or July. No. I think it is time to get worried. I think it is time to problem solve. The offense is good, sure, but the pitching, I can't find many reasonings to fix the pitching right now until the trade deadline. It's not like anyone's coming back in the next couple weeks. It's not like you have a big guy to call up from AAA. This is the rotation you have, and thank Billy Epler for it. So, all the people that say, "Oh, money, money, money," keep that mentality because it doesn't work in baseball.
I agree, and look, I see there's a couple of Philly fans in the chat, and a couple of them are talking about. Let's see. We got Raleigh, who I know a lot. He comes on the channel all the time, so I know he's a big Phillies fan. And there's another one here, but it's again. Yeah, Mullet, spending money doesn't work. How have the Phillies, by the way, prior to the Mets getting Steve Cohen, the Phillies just spending a lot more money than the Mets, and they weren't making the playoffs either. Again, can we stop acting like 2 wins from the World Series is an accomplishment for a team that won 87 games? I'm sorry, it's not. I'm sorry. I give credit to teams that actually win. The 2015 Mets failed. The 2022 Phillies failed. The only reason why you're happy about it because you had a shit season. You had a month and a half season because I was in Philadelphia in the middle of August when the Mets were beating the Phillies' ass in August, and Philly fans were walking out of the ballpark when the Mets were destroying them, saying, I can't believe this team, the money they're spending. That was the Phillies fans. So don't act like you didn't jump on the fucking bandwagon just like every other fan base would. So let's not act like the Phillies were because I heard people, the Phillies were always a great team. They were never a great team. They pitched a little better, and they started to hit home runs. Guess how they lost the World Series? They played bad defense, and they stopped hitting home runs. That's exactly what they did. When you have a month and a half of a hot streak, that you can ride that to the World Series. Absolutely. And I was on this channel last year saying, giving all the credit to the Phillies, because that's how you win. That's how you get to the World Series. You get hot. It's rare now that the best team in baseball, or the couple of best teams in baseball, make it to the promised land, win it or make it to the World Series. Now you have to get hot at the right time, which the Phillies did, which the Braves did in 2021, which the Nationals did in 2019, right? Those teams were never the best teams in the playoffs. The Nationals were one of the worst teams in the playoffs in 2019. The Braves won the division, but they weren't even considered to be a World Series contender in the playoffs. Same thing with the Phillies. The Phillies were just a wild card team, just like the Mets. And you give the Phillies all the credit in the world because they got extremely hot the right time. Electric, I agree. Money doesn't buy rings. The Phillies don't have rings either with the money, right? They won championships for a couple of homegrown guys, and they made a really good couple of trades back in the middle of the 2000 years, right? That was when they were extremely good. They got some veterans with some of their young homegrown guys, right? That was what they did. But let's not act like the Phillies were one of the best teams in baseball all year when I was seeing Philly fans walk out of Citizens Bank Park pissed off that the Mets were beating their ass in the middle of August. But after that point, they played great. That's the only difference, guys. Let's not act like a great team is a month and a half of a season. You got hot at the right time. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I gave the Phillies,
of course, yeah.
because that is the way you win in Major League Baseball now. The Houston Nationals were on just another level last year. It seemed like they were almost unstoppable to beat. The Phillies gave them a run, but the Phillies' downfall all season showed up in the last couple of games of the World Series. They stopped hitting home runs, and their bullpen and defense became garbage again. Exactly what they were during the season. It showed up at the wrong time. Do you give them no credit? No, you give them all the credit in the world. Because I'm not going to be a Mets fan and say the 2015 Mets didn't go on a hot run in August. They did. They didn't have a great season all year, right? The Astros had a great season all year and took it and rode it all the way. That's rare. But 3 out of the last 4 championships, or excuse me, 3 NL East teams, the Nationals, the Braves, and the Phillies, 2 won the World Series, and everybody else made the World Series 3 out of the last 4 years. How did they get there? Go back to the seasons and look when they got hot. It was after the trade deadline, and for the Phillies, it was even later. But they got hot at the right time.
And I mean, that's what baseball arguably can be. I mean, that's why it's a 162 game season. It's not 60. And, someone says in the chat, baseball is becoming more like hockey. And Joel, I agree with that. And also the playoffs. It doesn't really matter where you finish. It doesn't matter if you win the division. Look at it last year. The Phillies were the last seed in the playoff. They would have not even made the playoffs if it wasn't for the new CBA and expansion of the playoffs. And they were, 3 games away from winning the World Series. Correct. The Astros, yeah, they won the division. Sure, who cares? The Braves won the division, lost. Dodgers won the division, lost. Both of those teams lost to the wild card team. So, it doesn't really matter where you finish now. We've seen teams have, 85 wins. I mean, the 2006 Cardinals had 85 wins or something like that? And they, beat the Tigers in the World Series. So, like I said, it really doesn't matter what happens in the regular season. I guess it matters you get hot at the right time, but you have to continue that.
Yeah, exactly.
And, a big part is the deadline. I mean, you look at the 2015 Mets. They were a team that didn't have a big offense, but they went out there and they made offensive moves. They called up Michael Conforto from AAA. Michael Dyer, Juan Uribe. They brought in, Cespedes. That's what they did. And then, some other teams. Last year, the Phillies, they had some concerns with bullpen. They got David Robertson. And Ranger Suarez was definitely, a big surprise for them. But, I mean, I could see it both ways, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. I could see it both ways. But overall, the overall thing you can argue is in baseball, you can't buy championships. Money does not And I see we have a Electric, our Phillies friend, even agrees as a Phillies fan. And I'm sure if there was a Padres fan,
I agree with that. If you want to spend money,
a lot of your guys,
money.
especially the Astros. Who was their World Series MVP? Pena, free arbitration guy. He wasn't on a big contract. So money doesn't, and if money determines success, well, then you'd see the Mets, Padres, the Phillies, have the 3 best records in baseball, and they have arguably 3 of the most painful records in baseball. Look at the Rays. I mean, how much should they spend? And what are they? 30.
I think looking at the Rays, and I'll disagree with you about the Rays, because the Rays are on some type of analytical different level. It doesn't matter. They can spend.
Well, Matt, you need analytics.
If they actually spent $250 million, they would be the best team in baseball because of their development, their analytical department. Whatever they do, they're the only team in baseball that has an analytical person dressed in uniform on the bench. They're doing something right. So they can, if they had the money to spend $220 million, I mean, I don't think anybody would beat them, because they would do everything right. So the Rays are hard to judge when it comes to that, because Hal Steinbrenner wants to be the Rays all of a sudden, and it's not working for him either. The point of the matter is you have to look at the whole aspect. Is the Phillies have been spending money over the last 4 or 5 years since Dave Dombrowski popped up. The Padres have been basically spending just as much money as the Mets, prior to the Mets making a crazy amount of money this year. And again, money doesn't buy championships. We all know that. The only time where money actually probably bought a championship was the 2009 Yankees, when they got Teixeira, when they got Sabathia, when they got Burnett. Right? Even though Alex Rodriguez finally realized he had to play baseball in the postseason. But it's not about all just the money. It's about how you allocate the money. And you know what? Let's be honest. How many teams do a bad job doing that? Look, you just brought it up. The Padres, the Phillies, and the Mets. The Phillies are 3 games under 500. The Padres are what? 1 game under 500? 2 games?
4.
Over 500? 4. And the Mets are 500. So what is it? What is it? Is it the guys that you put together that don't mesh well? Or what, right? The Phillies made a massive contract for Trey Turner, right? He's been a disappointment. He's been getting a little bit better, and I still think he might be okay, but I don't know. So I brought this up prior to the stream, that one of the reporters, I don't know who it was. I wish I knew. I would give him credit and make you guys go to it. He wrote in a report, in an article, that Trey Turner would be the worst signing by a team. And he showed all the stats that, is kind of like, glaring in a way where it's like, it looks good on the surface level, but if you dig deeper, it's really not. Now, I was a proponent, and I'm going to take the heat on this. I was a proponent of the Mets going after Trey Turner. So I'm not killing the Phillies for doing it, because I was pissed off when the Phillies got Trey Turner. I'm not going to lie. But again, Trey Turner can turn around the season and be great for the Phillies. Who knows?
Yeah. Right? Anything could happen in baseball.
Yeah.
And one thing I just do want to acknowledge in the comment section is, yes, money doesn't necessarily buy rings, but it can keep you competitive every year.
It can help you build a farm system.
I will agree on that. Keeping guys like Nimmo and McNeil and Alonso and Lindor around will keep you competitive. But, there's a lot more to it than when it comes to, obviously,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought up that question. Who did the Mets sign or re-sign that shouldn't? That's my point. And that is a great point, Easy, because it's true. People forget the Mets had basically their entire rotation, except for one guy, a free agent. Nimmo was a free agent, and that was an issue within itself, right? So the Mets had to spend money. Because if you look at their farm system, there wasn't a Harvey, there wasn't a DeGrom, there wasn't a Steven Matz or a Syndergaard waiting to push into this rotation, where they could have just thrown them in there and we say, all right, let's go with the young boys, right? They had to spend money. Last year, nobody complained about signing Max Scherzer. The best pitcher on the market, the Mets got him. This year, right? There was Yankee fans saying the Yankees should have went after Verlander. So, and even the Padres were pushing for it a little bit later in the run, but it seemed like Verlander always wanted the Mets. So whatever the Mets did, for the most part, was what they had to do, because they couldn't fill their rotation with guys in their farm system, so they had to spend money. Again, no matter how you allocate the money, it is what it is. Because Chris Bassett, nobody wanted Chris Bassett after the playoffs last year. So for anybody who's like, oh, the Mets would have been great with Chris Bassett, well, you were bitching and moaning that Chris Bassett was an actual joke and choked in the two biggest spots of his Mets career. And the only reason why the Mets should have signed him is because what you gave up for him. Other than that, nobody wanted him. And Taijuan Walker, the same thing. So it's like, what else could the Mets have done? Again, people was like, oh, we shouldn't have signed Verlander. We should have signed Scherzer. Great. Who would the Mets would have got? Because DeGrom right now is on the IL, right?
The past, month and a half?
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying. Like, where were the Mets supposed to go? Everybody wants these bright ideas. Oh, they shouldn't have signed this 40-year-old Verlander. They shouldn't have signed Scherzer. Who were they signing at that point? Because there was nobody that they could have just brought up and says, okay, let's go with them.
I mean, I think guys like Trevor Williams, I think he could have easily been in honestly, but Williams could have fit into a nice role. I agree with that. If you look at the offensive side, J.D. Davis would have definitely came back to bite them.
Who?
J.D. Davis.
Yeah, but
everyone and anyone could have told.
But again, J.D. Davis would have been a big part of this team most likely. And the same thing that goes for, with what was the other pitcher? Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams has a 5 ERA with the Nationals. Do you want a 5 ERA? He wasn't gonna make or break this rotation. Because again, Chris Bassett was great during the season, except for the two biggest games of the season for the Mets. The game against the Braves and the game against the Padres. Nobody wanted Chris Bassett after that 2 games. So forever, all the Met fans on Twitter, in the chat, if any of you said that, or anybody on social media or anywhere said, oh, it would have been nice to have Chris Bassett. Look what he did against the Yankees. Nobody wanted him after those 2 starts. His comments after the game were very alarming. So just because he can pitch in Toronto, right, doesn't mean he can still pitch in big games in New York. So let's stop that. All right. And the 2 biggest pitchers that were on the market of the last 2 years, the New York Mets got, who Met fans wanted. People were split between DeGrom and Verlander, but let's be honest. Who would you rather have right now? Which is the worst contract to have? The Rangers are winning despite Jacob DeGrom. Right? Jacob DeGrom, yes, he's getting a little bit less, but he got, a 5-year deal. So would you rather go with DeGrom, who's already hurt in year 1 of that new contract, or Verlander, who, actually is on the mound at the very least right now, giving you a start? If he's going to pitch well, throw that in the air. The problem is the Mets, in any situation you went, if the Mets would have said, in my opinion, right, when I said in the offseason, and I'll eat this up, right, I said the Mets should have signed Trey Turner, put him in center field, and not sign Nimmo. That would have probably been a disaster, but it would have probably made some Met fans happy. Myself, until look what happened. That is the problem. People only bring up, oh, we should have kept Bassett. We should have signed Walker. Did you see Walker's ERA this year? He had a great start against the Braves, but that's Walker. Walker has a great start, and he'll have 3 bad ones in a row. That was what Walker. People looked at the ERA and look what Walker did with the Mets. Walker was in a much bigger ballpark with the Mets. Pitched half his games in a huge ballpark. Now he's in a bandbox at Citizens Bank, and you see the difference. So whoever said, oh, you should have signed Walker, you should have signed this guy. Oh, why would you keep this guy? If the Mets would have kept the same rotation as last year, and they would have had DeGrom, they would have had Bassett, they would have had Walker, and say Trevor Williams would be their 5th starter. You would have a 5 ERA guy. You would have another 5 ERA guy. You would have Chris Bassett, who, looks good, but in the first month of the season had like a 6 ERA. He was terrible. So, and then if Scherzer is what he is now, well, you already had a worse rotation this year than last year based on their performances this year. And DeGrom hasn't really pitched this year. So there's your difference. So there's nowhere to go. Whatever the Mets could have done probably would have been just as bad, if not worse.
The only two big guys I think I would have personally signed if I was the GM. Well, I guess we'd have been one. I would have not been against signing a guy like JD Martinez. The back. Well, yeah, that's why he has 10 home runs. So, JD Martinez was a guy I was a little kind of like, oh, the Mets should target. But the bullpen, there were a lot of bullpen arms that kind of fell through the cracks that I think Epler was taking a nap and didn't really pick up on. Obviously, and I don't care about the, some of their numbers, situationals, they're good. Whether that was a guy like what's the guy with the facial hair from Arizona?
Andrew Chafin.
Andrew Chafin, $6 million a year. You kidding me? Epler could have not done that.
I wanted him badly.
Michael Fulmer, a year, $6 million also. Two candidates right there. Obviously, Miguel Castro pitching great with the D-backs, and you're telling me, but he didn't play well with the Mets. Well, then maybe that's on fault of Jeremy Hefner, because maybe Jeremy Hefner couldn't fix him where the D-backs easily could have. So maybe the Mets should fire Hefner then. So I mean, you look at guys like Miguel Castro. Look at Colin Holderman. I think anyone could have told you he would have been good.
Yeah.
So, those are some candidates right there.
That's the little things, though. And like I said, with the bullpen, that's a sign. And again, and we could talk about JD Martinez. Again, I don't think the lineup's ever going to be the issue. I don't think it is. But Clint brought up, would you trade Ronnie Mauricio for pitching help? Well, this lineup is scoring over 6 runs per ball game, right? Ronnie Mauricio, great. The Mets are going to score 9 runs per ball game, but they're giving up 10. So Ronnie Mauricio, is he going to help? Yeah, I guess so. But as I said over the last year and a half, Ronnie Mauricio is the biggest trade chip the New York Mets have. If you want the Mets to make a big deal at the deadline for whatever it might be, starting pitching, a big bat, whatever it is, whatever you think is the key point, and the Mets games are just about to start, first pitch from Senga, the one big piece you think the Mets need, whatever it might be at the trade deadline, because for all we know, the way this team's going, the pitching might actually be good at the deadline and the offense might suck again. But I tell you again, the New York Mets, Ronnie Mauricio is the biggest trade chip they have. He is the most MLB ready, and that is what teams are looking for. Cheap, under control, and MLB ready. So if you're looking for a big bat, if you're looking for a big arm, whatever it might be, Ronnie Mauricio is going to be at the tip of that. And that's the biggest reason why the Mets are holding him back to play in the major leagues. Because right now the offense is fine. Ronnie Mauricio is not going to help this team win because he can't pitch. So let's see what will happen with Mauricio, because there was more rumors that he was supposed to come up today. That didn't happen. I don't think the Mets want to bring him up, and he struggles because that lessens his trade value. And I think the New York Mets are going to use Ronnie Mauricio, the biggest trade chip they have, for possibly a trade deadline move. So if you want the Mets to make a big move, whatever it might be, Mauricio is going to be a part of that deal. So Hayden, say your final thoughts so everybody can go watch their Mets game and hopefully beat the Phillies.
Yeah, obviously, like I said, obviously we had a lot of good stuff to talk about in today's stream. All that great stuff. Whether you're tuning in on my channel, Rob's channel, I appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. Like I said, it's baseball. It's stressful. Like I said, Rob and I, we're going to come on here. We're going to be honest. We're going to be frank. We're not going to bullshit, and we're not going to, we're going to speak our minds, whether we sound really negative or really positive or in the middle.
And even if you don't like it.
Yeah. Like I said, hey, there's some things I disagree with about everyone and vice versa. So, it is what it is. But like I said, appreciate everyone for tuning in. Obviously, not an ideal week for the Mets. They could easily turn it around now. Do I think they will? I'm kind of getting a little concerned. I would say the scale of 1 being fine, 10 being, really panic, go nuts. I'm at a 4.55 about now. I'm a little nervous. The clock is ticking. Every game matters. We saw it last year, and
how it mattered.
There's a lot. And next week at this time, if we're in the same dilemma, I would probably think Hefner is on his final couple days out.
Yep.
You can't keep, playing, the card games. So, we'll see how that goes. But I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Obviously, give this video a like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. Probably doing a live stream Monday to, recap the Phillies and preview the Blue Jays series. Obviously, like I said, Rob and I and a couple other cool YouTubers and podcast people. Yeah, I guess podcast people. I guess I don't know. I'm like, wait, what do you call that? Definitely some good stuff in regards to that. So keep an eye out on that. And that's really all I got. Let's go Mets. Let's turn it around. Let's ride, baby.
Absolutely. Like, let's go Mets, of course, guys. And again, thank you for tuning into another Shea Bridge show. Again, look out for that big collab that we're going to have, me, Hayden, and a couple other YouTubers, podcasters. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of positive and negative feeds from passionate Met fans. But you guys love all of that because you are the same, just like us. We just have a platform to voice our opinions a little bit more. And we're here to actually listen to you guys as well. So once again, guys, the Mets and Phillies game 1 at Citifield. Sanger struck out the first batter. That's a good start so far. So let's see what the Mets can do. Let's see if they can turn it around in this homestand. Everybody, let's go Mets. Thank you for tuning into the Shea Bridge show. We'll see you again next week. And everybody, have a good night. Enjoy the game. Let's go Mets. Hayden, have a good night, buddy.
Let's go. We're gonna make it this time.